What is up, everybody, and welcome from the sidelines. I am CJ alongside Jackson, and today we're doing Risers and Fallers, and we're doing a little NFL draft talk today. It's going to be a lot of fun. Jackson, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. Anytime we could talk, NFL draft, I'm going to light up like a Christmas tree. I'm excited to talk ball. Let's just kind of just dive straight into it. Let's just, no huddle. Let's go. So I guess, obviously, you get the draft fatigue, you get the prospect fatigue with where you're looking at guys since, January. Once the season is ended, you start seeing guys who think, oh yeah, this guy's definitely a first rounder. This guy's a first rounder. He's a late sleeper. Is there any prospects right now on your list that's like, man, I'm kind of getting a little, maybe he's not as good as I thought he was early on in my evaluation. Is there a player that you think that's just like, I don't know. Maybe I'm second guessing what I thought of him.
Man, I think the draft fatigue and this prospect fatigue is the most interesting thing because I think that a ton of teams fall victim to it. I think that, we see the mock drafts change over time despite the prospects not changing at all, right? And essentially what it really boils down to is that there's a mock draft right after all the football has been played that should probably be the most accurate synopsis of all of the talent displayed over the past year and where they should fall in the draft. And then boredom sets in, and so the media has to find a way to keep us interested in it. So they change up a couple things. They rise and knock the draft stock of random athletes just kind of based on kind of what gets hot in the media. If someone posts some good workouts, or if there's some QB camps or pro days, can have a huge impact. And we've seen teams fall victim to the pro day, i.e., the Jets with Zach Wilson. And it's so interesting that every year we kind of fall for this draft fatigue where these great players fall down the draft and some not so great guys rise up the draft based on things that they haven't really done, right? And I think that one of those guys, we'll get into it later in the episode, but one of those guys that's really profiting off of that right now is Jackson Dart. You know,
Woo!
I think that after the season was over and everything had been done, Jackson Dart was a respectable prospect, who he has pro talent, he has that potential, but he's a very unpolished product. And I think that's why people had him going later than he is projected now. But he's one of those guys with this surging need for quarterback play, with maybe some fan bases not being happy with the free agents that their free agent quarterbacks their team signed. Dart has kind of gone up the board despite really not, not doing, he can't do anything during this period of time. Like you can post a workout, you can make a fancy throw on IG Live, but he's not playing anybody. And so he's really profiting off of this draft fatigue as people move him up and up the boards just to keep some sort of conversation going.
Yeah, it's funny you said that because I did see a tweet this week about it was literally Zach Wilson hits that roll out left, throw it deep, throw, and then it's like, oh, Jackson Dart at his pro day, and it's funny because I feel the same way about Jackson Dart because I like Jackson Dart and I was a big fan of Matt Corral as well at Ole Miss, right? And obviously they're two different talents. I think Jackson Dart is more talented than Matt Corral. And obviously, there's the concerns about whether or not a Lane Kiffin offense can translate well to the next level. And I think Daxter has a good arm. He's solidly accurate. He makes questionable plays. I think that what's so damning for me about his tape is just watching the Florida game. I watched the Florida game live, and then I rewatched the Florida game. He made some good throws, but he made just terrible errors late in the game when you need him to, right? And it's one of those things where a player will show you he lit up Georgia. He did really well against Georgia, and he had really good games early in the year. But then it's like that crunch time of when I need you to. This should be a game that you should win. He just kind of reverts to this I don't know what I'm doing. He kind of factor resets as a quarterback, and that is concerning because I want to see my guys in those crunch times because Florida gave him so many opportunities to win the game. They got a pick. He threw a pick. Then they got to pick again to give him the ball back. And then he threw a pick again. It was I get it. He was just doing too much. He was playing hero ball, right? And we hear that a lot with these young quarterbacks in these systems where they feel like they have to do everything. And so, same thing with Shador Sanders and Jackson Dart. I both think they're not even. They probably won't even be in the first or second round of last year's draft if you want to look at it. I like the traits of Jackson Dart. He can move. He has a good arm, but it's just something missing there that I think you can fool yourself into buying the fool's gold. And then with Shador, I think Shador has everything between the ears and has enough of the physical traits to be a solid quarterback, but I just don't think like a top five is necessarily, where his range should fall. I think, which I'm hoping that his mental and his intangibles can lead him further, like kind of like a Geno Smith type trajectory, or even a Teddy Bridgewater, where he might face some adversities, but I think he's smart enough to learn offense and to be able to make enough good throws and the right decisions to get a team far. But I just don't see a superstar for either of these quarterbacks.
Yeah, I was really interested and a little bit frustrated to see some of Shador's tape as he's made some amazing throws at Colorado. But if you look at his full mixtape and they show off every bit of his game, they want to show that he's an athlete so that he can, translate to the league because you have to be able to move now. There's
Oh, yeah.
very few, there's not going to be any more Peyton Mannings, Tom Brady's that like truly sit in the pocket and go down when a rusher comes, right? Like that brand of quarterback is getting phased out, despite how great a really great quarterback at that could be. You see a lot of Shador's highlights for his athleticism, for his scrambling out of the pocket. They're all from when he was at Jackson State. He doesn't really have a ton of clips like that against Big 12 defenses, and Big 12 defenses are not that good.
No.
They're not the best athletes at pass rusher or at linebacker, and he wasn't really beating those guys in foot races. He had a couple of runs that, showed that he can get outside and all that, but he's not fooling anybody with the athleticism, it's all about what he has between the ears, like you said. And kind of what you said about Jackson Dart and kind of making those mistakes and kind of reverting back to that, I don't know what I'm doing. I think that prospect wise, he reminds me of the Rams Jared Goff. Not now Jared Goff, but
Okay.
Rams Jared Goff was so unpolished, like I said, and it came down to decision making, right? He had the arm talent, he had enough mobility in the pocket to move around, and he just couldn't make a decision when a decision needed to be made, right? Or at least when he did make a quick decision, it was not the right one. He
Right.
needed his first read to be a good one, and if he had to go to his second or third read, like shit hit the fan, right? So McVay was literally making decisions for him, right? Telling him where the ball needed to go, and it led to some bad play. Like obviously McVay is an offensive genius, and so it led to some great play too. But there were several like pick sixes that I can think of that he threw to the guy that McVay told him to, and the pass wasn't open at all. And so that's kind of what I see right now is that Dart really lacks just that decision making. While he's got all the intangible, all the talents that you can have, he doesn't quite have the in the moment pressures on type of IQ that like settled in the pocket in the moment type of thing that I mean as we've seen Jared Goff has developed that, right? Like we don't need to talk about playoffs because I like obviously, performance there wasn't as great, but late in games Goff has played well in the
Yeah.
NFL. And that's something that he was held against him, right? In the early years with the Rams. So that's kind of what I see his equivalent as. Obviously, Lions Jared Goff would be a fantastic projection. If you told any quarterback that they were like Jared Goff right now, I think they would take that very well. But Lions Jared Goff means that you have quite a bit to work on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, I see that. I think again, like all of these quarterbacks need time to develop, right?
Hmm.
And they need to be in the right situation where they'll be coddled and they'll be taken care of. And I just don't think they will be unless they go to like, I don't even know. Like I could see like, maybe even I don't think the Chicago Bears would go draft a quarterback high, but like say if a guy like, I don't know, like a Jalen McMilrow or something like that. He's still around in like the fourth or fifth round.
Hmm.
Like that'd be a nice little prospect quarterback that you can kind of hopefully you can develop with a good offensive minded quarterback where you get time to get reps, right? And not every team is going to unfortunately get that, and especially when you're going to be picking high, like the Tennessee Titans, like the Jets, like the Giants. Which even if the Giants, like a Dayball, I think Dayball and Dart makes a lot of sense because he works really well with mobile quarterbacks. Um, so I don't know.
Do you think that
It,
the Giants take Dart?
I kind of think so. Like everyone's like I don't know if they take him at 3 is the question, right?
Right. So maybe
Um,
a trade back.
a trade back possibly, because like even think about it. What if you could get? Because think about it. What if like I mean, this was a chance Shador could go too, right? Like we can see back to back quarterback. Shador makes a lot of sense with Kevin Stefanski because Kevin Stefanski works well with quarterbacks who don't move. They get the ball out in time.
Hmm.
There's a question if do they make the move to get Kirk Cousins if they can get Kirk Cousins at like a league minimal, for the next couple of years. Does that makes it obviously running that back with the Vikings? We still don't know what's going to happen with Kirk Cousins' saga. They got Kenny Pickett, right? So like, do you trade for 2 quarterbacks? Because I mean, the team for the most part is kind of ready to try to compete in the AFC North, excuse me. Um, I mean, obviously, you have to. Everyone's saying like you have to go draft quarterback. Like, but even Adam Schefter walked that statement back from when he said, "I would be shocked to see if the Browns don't draft a quarterback." Now he kind of walked it back. So that does tell me. Obviously, now that before that, that's before they traded for Kenny Pickett. I don't know how much they believe Kenny Pickett's gonna be their guy.
Right.
I would believe that. But like, if they want to go another veteran, go Kirk and Kenny Pickett, let those two compete it out. Then you go best player available. If Cam Ward is off the board at 1, then you now have a dual Carter and Myles Garrett. That sounds absolutely lethal.
Yep.
And then at 3, it's like, yeah, Shador will be there, but like, who do you think will have a bigger upside, right, with the Giants? Because obviously the Giants got Jameis, losing out on Aaron Rodgers. Well, Aaron Rodgers still hasn't signed nowhere, but theory, everyone's expecting Rodgers to sign with the Steelers, even though he's trying to hold out to fulfill the Brett Favre prophecy, going to the Vikings. He wants to go, but I don't think they want him.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I would not be surprised. I think we could see that. Like, but it has to be. You have to find a team who really wants Shador, and I don't know
Right.
if Shador's going top 10. So it's like, could the Giants stick at the pick at 3, go like Mason Graham or Travis Hunter at 3, get you another piece, right?
Hmm.
Then make a move later on to maybe because everyone's talking about 21 with 20 or 20, wherever Steelers pick is, that Jackson Dart could land at. So do you then make sure you get up in front of them, right? So I don't know. There's a lot of like different things, but we can talk about that at the last segment. Let's talk about people who we think are rising up the board right now in terms of draft stock. Like there was a guy that I would say a couple weeks ago, but it feels like he's been sliding back down.
I want to hear it.
Mike Green. Mike Green was kind of like lighting the world on fire. And I'm a big Mike Green fan. I was a big fan, but obviously there's been some speculation off the field issues that he's dealt with in high school, and I think also in college. The reason why he transferred to Marshall. So there's been media perceived that he's been sliding down the boards, but I think he's could still be in play for edge 2 off the board, but that seems to be really up in the air right now behind Abdul Carter.
Yeah, I would say since we're an NFL podcast and the top 10 should be maybe even just the top 5 should be presumed to be names that we all know. Maybe for the listeners, we elaborate on who these guys are just in case. Like I agree with you. I really like that as a call, but I think from here out I might be like, hey, I like this guy, this position, this school, just in case, our NFL heavy listeners are like, yeah, I didn't really watch the college season. I'm more of an NFL guy, if that makes sense. So Obviously, Mike Green being a guy who it could absolutely slide up there, maybe two or three at the edge position. I completely agree. Um, I think that as far as some of my guys that um, as far as moving up the board, obviously I've already said Jackson Dart. I've got him going well before 21, as I think that the media will carry him up there. I like I said, I don't believe in this push to get Dart up there. I honestly think he would really benefit from falling later in the draft and going to a team that we've talked about is more prepared to, build you as a player, instead of, start you right away and put you into the mix, right? Giants with Jackson Dart, yeah, I mean, their DBs better have the best hands by the end of the offseason. Like Jackson Dart, Jameis Winston. I mean, it's a DB's dream, right? Like you're gonna give up some home runs to Jackson Dart and Jameis Winston, but like you're gonna be able to get your hands on the ball. So
Oh,
training camp specifically, for those last couple DB spots, they're going to be praying that both those guys are on the roster so that they can, hopefully show off their skills. Um, but yeah, that being said, another guy that I think could rise up the boards, and I'm not really talking like top 10, even top 15, maybe not even first round, but Quinshad Judkins, running
mm.
back out of Ohio State. He's one of those guys that's making his own push up the draft boards with all the media stuff because he's just started posting workouts in which like he's due for a drug test the second he gets in the league. Dude looks so different than he did like 8 months ago that
Yeah.
I mean, if they already haven't tested all the draft eligible players, he'll be getting one pretty soon. He looks nuts, right? And so he's wowing GMs with these videos. It's this new age of recruiting where like you can garner some attention just based on what you put out there. And so obviously, no, he's not going to top Genty. Like Genty will be the first running back off the board. But then there's a large push for who's after him, right? I'm a Tar Heel. Hampton's my guy. I would go with Hampton. I think he's the most complete running back after Genty. But I'm not sure he has the most upside. Someone like Judkins, someone like Donovan Edwards, who sat behind Corum, so took less hits over his college career, which is valuable at the running back position. There will be a lot of debate over like what order those running backs fall in.
Yeah, I think with Judkins is crazy because he even since he's left Ole Miss because he wasn't as big as he was. I think he gained like 8 pounds of muscle from when he went to Ole Miss to when he went to Ohio State,
Right.
and he's even gaining even more. Which I mean, when you hear that, you kind of become a little concerned because does he lose speed? But then at the combine, he just went ahead and just ran a 4.45. Okay,
Yep. Put
that's
that to rest. Yep.
right. So it's like, that those are normally concerns. I think Amari Hampton is actually making a case to be running back one off the board right now with how well he ran and how well he looks. Don't get me, we haven't seen Genty run yet. I don't think Boise State pro days happened yet. So we still need to see those numbers. But I think Hampton, I think has shown he's become a complete back. And I think, you might have that flavor. Because I think they're 1A, 1B, to be
Mhm.
honest. So it just depends on what flavor of running back that you want. And then after that, Travion Henderson, I think, is just, a dynamic speed back. Me personally, I think Donovan Edwards is falling down draft boards just because
Yeah.
of his production. You would have thought being a cover athlete on NCAA, and then two, finally you coming back another year now that Corum is gone. But like I'm afraid he might be a Tony Pollard, and when I say that, he might just be a really good back that's spelled by a number one back, right? And he kind of lost carries and lost some momentum to I think I forget the name of the other running back, the Michigan running back, who's actually in the draft as well this year, but he kind of lost a lot of carries and yards this past year, so his production wasn't as high.
Hmm.
So it's like we seen like how good he could be in those national championship games and like the playoff games over the last couple of years where he is a home run hitter. But we're like, okay, he just might not be a running back one. Like he might be like a perennial like RB2 who might go off for a couple of games every once in a while. So then where does that land you in terms of draft capital? And
Right.
that's like a 6th to 7th round guy, to be honest, or maybe
Hmm.
drafting, where we might even take a like a swing on a Tootin from Virginia Tech who ran 4.3, who was electric, who's has some pretty good yards after contact if you're looking at the advanced numbers. To be like, oh, that is interesting. He can be a high end RB2
Hmm.
slash RB1, right? Versus like I feel like Donovan Edwards is kind of showing like a low end RB2,
Hmm.
not much of like a RB1 type. He might be a committee guy, full committee guy versus like your Sonic and what is it, Sonic and
Knuckles. Yeah.
yeah, with in Detroit. So I think Donovan didn't run as fast as I would like him to. I thought he would be a little bit more dynamic. So it's a lot about Donovan that's kind of like a little disappointing. He's falling for me, especially in a very stacked running back class.
Donovan Edwards is going to be that running back that your fantasy opponent picked up because all of his running backs were hurt and he goes for 30 that week just out of nowhere. You know, he's that exactly what you said, right? That really dynamic backup running back who, shows a lot of flashes because he's not given a lot of touches, he's a change of pace guy. Honestly, two teams that always have a backup running back like that, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Dallas Cowboys. Those teams always have some second guy at RB who's dynamic, right? Obviously,
Yeah,
we have Warren at Pittsburgh and Pollard at the Cowboys for like the most recent examples of such, right? Because this year, specifically with the Cowboys, right, like it was just a kind of different hodgepodge. Like they brought Zeke back, it's a mess of a running back room, so it was a little bit different. But in years past, right, they've had a strong RB1 and then a very dynamic RB2 like Pollard was, right? Um, or Warren with Pittsburgh. So, yeah, I mean, I think that he was a victim to this season. He didn't play up to his potential and it's killed his draft stock.
yeah. And to add to those teams who are not, you got to add in the 49ers who always seem to have running back injuries, but they just next
The
man up
Dolphins.
break zone and the Dolphins exactly. And
Yep.
again, that tree is that Mike Shanahan wide zone scheme that's
Yep.
just big for running backs to just eat and make those cutbacks. And Raheem Mostert is not on the Dolphins. I mean, they still have. I mean, they're still loaded at running back with speed in Miami. And then I think they just traded Jordan Mason, so the 49ers will definitely be looking to add to that running back room, which will be, unfortunate for everyone, especially if CMC can't go. But do you have
Yeah.
any more fallers or risers before we give our top 10?
Someone that I would like to see rise, and I don't necessarily know that he's been a product of the media fascination, would be Harold Fannin, if you're familiar.
I know, yeah.
Yep.
Bowling.
Bowling Green tight end. He was the best statistical tight end in every category, every possible advanced metric, every way that you could quantify the game of football, except for rushing yards. He was the leader for tight ends, and of course the
Yeah,
rushing yard leader, Tyler Warren. I don't think that that's any knock to Warren. I think he's obviously going to be a very productive NFL tight end as well. Um, we don't need to get into awards too much, but Fannin was, I believe, more deserving. I think that the media wanted a Big Ten, guy who was very important to his offense because they would run him in the Wildcat and stuff like that. But like
yeah,
the tight end award shouldn't go to the guy who's running the Wildcat, right? Like it's not about what you do in the rushing game, it's what you do as a tight end, you know? Um, so I think that Fannin's one of those guys that, he can be a workhorse. You can throw him the ball a ton of times. He can take hits. He can move well. He runs great routes. He's got amazing speed and pretty impressive size as well. So I think that whoever drafts him is going to get good value out of that pick, just because I think Warren will go before him in the draft. And so they'll be able to get tight end two, but really have a very, very valuable tight end two. So someone that I would like to see rise up the draft. I'd personally like my Panthers pick at 8, so please don't do that at 8. But um, later on in the draft, I'm not actually sure where he's projected to be drafted right now. But I would not mind a trade up in the draft to take him before whatever team is projected to take him.
right. Yeah, I think he's. I mean, I've seen as high as like late first round.
Hmm.
I I think he kind of tested little bit bad. Little he ran a little bit of a slow 40, but
Hmm.
he plays faster than when he runs, right? And
Hmm.
so you're gonna have to really kind of go back to the tape. Also, saying just like someone who got robbed of their awards. I think Nick Nash of San Jose State, who had a triple crown in college football, got robbed of being the best receiver award over Travis
Hmm.
Hunter. And I get it, whatever. Travis Hunter had the whole, the engine behind him, but a dude who got a triple crown in college football, yes, you say no, it's the level of competition he played against wasn't that great, but like, dude, a triple crown is a triple crown.
I agree.
That's impressive. So I hope this. I think Nick Nash is going to be a. He's going to be a 40, not 49. He's going to be a Ram. He's going to be a Sean McVay guy,
Oh
and he's
yeah.
going to be. And it's just going to be boom, rinse, recycle, repeat. Got another one. Playing in the slot or wherever he wants to play him at. So, um, but yeah, let's do a top 10, shall we, of the upcoming draft? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'd say you go ahead and give me your top 10 and then I'll have some reactions ready and then I'll give you mine and we'll see how much we can duke it out over this
Okay, perfect.
and probably both be wrong.
No, I think for number one, I'm gonna go. You know what? I'm gonna go. It has to be Cam Ward, number one to the Titans. I think that's just straight up. Number two, I think I'm gonna go Abdul Carter to the Browns. Three, I'm going to do the surprise pick because we kind of been talking about it and teasing it, and the
Hmm.
team could just fall in love with this guy, and they're just going to get him no matter what. I think Jackson Dart goes three to the Giants over Shador, and now then it's going to be, whoa, what's going on with Shador Sanders, and the cameras are going to be all over him. The
Hmm.
Patriots grab Travis Hunter at four. I think after that we see. Mason Graham goes to the Jaguars. Six, everyone's talking about possibly Genti here, but this team is too bad. Like this team they need top tier talent all over, and I think they go Will Johnson of Michigan at six. Seven, we got the Jets, who I think I did a draft on my TikTok. I hate to pile one, and I think Membu is going to be the first tackle off the board. He's too good. He's professionally polished. He's just a great mover. You protect Justin Fields, you get you an offensive tackle. Build through the trenches. At the world is their oyster because you can get the pick of the second best edge, or you can get the best tight end if you want a playmaker. But I think that they go Jalen Walker here from Georgia. The Saints here need offensive line help, so I think they go. I think Will Campbell slides. His short arms, I think, is just going to be a problem, and I think that we see Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas go here, and then at 10, who starts off and sets this thing off right? At 10, I think with Tyler Warren still on the board, the the Bears go Tyler Warren, get you another weapon for Caleb Williams. So that's my top 10.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of had my phone out writing down reactions so I could properly remember where exactly we had everything there. Uh, I don't think that my top 10 is too different. I counted out our differences here, and I guess, I guess we have five different picks in our top 10. So some similarities, but obviously some differences. Starting with Jackson Dart to the Giants at three. I feel like we've already kind of covered that. That's a shocker. I don't know that he jumps Shador since the narrative has been that they like Shador so much. I also think that Jackson Dart outside of the Giants, hasn't gotten enough interest from other teams to jump that high. So maybe they trade back and still do take Dart, but maybe not at three.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't hate it. it's one of those things. I mean, I'm the one who brought him up first. Like he, we don't know. Come draft day, they could be talking about him over Cam Ward, and we could, for whatever statistical change they've made,
Yeah.
whatever hand picking of stats we're looking at, they're like, actually, Dart's the best quarterback in the draft, and we're like, are you
We just
serious? Like, are we really?
talent. Then they're going to compare him to Jaden Daniels because look, a guy who played really well in the SEC has done well over the last couple of years. And it's like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, and it's like if you want to put Jackson Dart and Jaden Daniels in the same like sentence, like let's just throw all caution to the wind. Let's just say that conferences matter and that yeah, it's a mess. I
But in
think
this
that
scenario, real quick, this would cause the Cleveland Browns to trade back up to get Shador Sanders later on this draft. I'm just giving you a little taste of just the chaos that I want to have in this mock draft for entertainment purposes. But yeah.
I think Shador has so many haters that it would be great for NFL production, for viewership, for all that if Shador falls in the draft because of all the cameras on him and Dion
That,
stressing about like what is happening, why aren't we getting this? When like there's already been conversation about how much Shador's been kind of a diva with these team meetings, and he's denied several team meetings just because he just doesn't like the team, doesn't want to meet with them. Like, you can hold an opinion, man, but like if I'm looking at getting drafted in the top 3, I'm probably nice to all teams in the top 5 just because I'm going to be a top 5 draft pick, right? And they're going to
yeah.
pay you top 5 draft pick money. Um, doesn't seem like he's been like that. Obviously, comfort of having a dad who's gone pro, had a very nice career as well as successful coaching career so far. Money's not the only thing, but it doesn't make a ton of sense to me why he acts like that. But I mean, Dion had his own flavor, his own attitude too. So like, it's not shocking, right? Dion's probably in his ear, like, oh, you're worth more than that. You need to whatever, and at some point, he might have just fallen victim to that, or just be following instructions, right? Kind of trying to do that kind of demand thing that Lonzo Ball did when LeVar Ball was in his ear about like, oh, I'll only play for the Lakers, and people were like,
Right.
you're not Kobe, man. Like, it's not it's not like that. But I mean, he got what he wanted.
Yeah,
Um,
shoot. John did that as well. Like he refused certain teams. He's like, well, what are you guys picking? He's like 10. I'm gonna be gone by then. Or he's like, oh, you better not pick me or I'm not showing up. So just like, you strategically get to where you want to go.
yeah.
So
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, like Eli Manning was someone that did that we kind of forget about. Like, he was
oh yeah.
very strong in his preference, and so like, I don't love the narrative that people really do hate on Shador, and I think he has a lot of influence from his dad that pushes him to kind of show that attitude a little bit, but like. People give hate to Shador that's a little unwarranted, right? Like, he is
I agree.
just a kid who's just kind of like, he's figuring out himself, how he's supposed to navigate this and get in the best situation. And we were just talking about how like the situation matters more than anything, right? It might benefit him to fall in the draft because he could be in a system that might allow him to develop first. But I
Mhm.
really doubt that's why he's, causing a scene and the team meeting stuff.
Yeah,
Either that or Dion is one of the smarter guys, in the NFL, and we never knew it. Um,
for sure.
they could be outsmarting us all. But we'll move on past that since we're already at 9. Um, uh, so you had Will Johnson going up to the Raiders. I like that pick. I had them taking Genty. I was kind of going with what a lot of people are thinking there. Genty's kind of one of those guys that sells tickets in an expensive stadium where they're really still trying to build a fan base. Drafting based on defense doesn't really pull that. As well as, yeah, I mean, their team is so untalented. They need so much help. I think that Will Johnson's a better pick. I don't think they make the better pick there. I think they take Genty.
Yeah, for me,
Um,
he's just a luxury pick, and they're not in a luxury state. Like I would
mhm.
even lean like I would even lean tackle. Like I feel like they have to solidify their the top your 3 positions: your left tackle, your quarterback. They got edge, and then your corner. So your 4 pillars of your team that you need to build. And I think between those 4, I think that's what they need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Um, They need to do that. We will see if they actually do that.
Yeah.
Um, 7 with the Jets. I had Dart going at 7
Okay.
to the Jets. I think that that's it kind of depends. I mean, they just moved to Fields, so I don't know if Fields is like their future guy. I know that he wasn't the most expensive, so
Yeah.
they might still draft a quarterback, and then who knows what that means for Fields. Fields might fall victim to another like move for a young quarterback, kind of like the Bears wanted to move on for Caleb Williams. Obviously different here because he'd be on the same team at the same time. Um, Very interesting. I think that the Jets fall victim to all of the narrative saying they need to draft somebody, and I don't think they're willing to trade up. So I think that they end up taking Jackson Dart, or honestly just trading that pick away, and saying there's almost too much we need to address. We need to get more draft capital and address more holistically. Um, let's see. You had Kelvin Banks from Texas to the Saints. That's actually where I had Will Johnson falling. Not falling because that's kind
Yeah.
of where he's projected at anyway. But I like that. The Saints need to protect their quarterback. The Saints have another one of those needs to kind of protect those pillars, like build those pillars.
Mhm.
And Will Johnson doesn't really build upon those. Although I think that if Will Johnson falls to anyone outside of the top 8, then they've won. Like they've gotten a fantastic pick out of Will Johnson.
Which
So
makes a lot of sense losing not losing, but like trading away Marshawn Lattimore.
right,
So now they do have a corner there. I think they still need to. I can't remember if they re-signed him or not, but yeah, adding to that corner room again, it's the 4 pillars that you got to address. And if you have Will Johnson there, you go for that. If you got an offense, they've been trying to draft tackles every year in the first round. It hasn't been working out very well.
yeah,
Like Chuck, it's not good. For Nanu, not Fatana, for Wega. Anyway, they drafted from Oregon State last year. Short arms, he might be better to be put in at guard, and then you can have a Banks out there at left tackle, and you can really
hmm
solidify one side.
hmm
I think that's really good for them as well.
yeah. And then to really cap it off with the end of the top 10, there is the Bears have been heavy on O line. It I think some people are kind of divided on this. They're like, okay, the Bears have done a ton for O line. They probably need to address other needs. And some are saying that like they're just going full psychopath and stocking their O line as much as possible. And I kind of buy into that as well. I think that they do go tackle with Membu. I think that he falls. You had him at 7 to the Jets. I think he falls enough to have the Bears take him. And I think that they continue to bolster that O line, like truly build around Caleb Williams. I think that as we talked about last week, like Ben Johnson is going to kind of show them, like, you guys have talent at quarterback. Just please protect him, because he's already got receivers, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I
Roman
think,
Dunze, DJ Moore, and you still got Cole Komet. So it's
yeah.
like everyone. I know some Bears fans who have been projecting Ashton Genty there as well, but again, that's a luxury pick. They've done a lot. Don't get me wrong; they've done a lot to solidify the spine of your offensive line,
Hmm.
right? So for me, I mean, even with actually got some pretty good edge. They got pretty good pillar players. Like I could see I just see like if you get like a solidified like left tackle or another edge piece to really just kind of go crazy on this team to really just solidify depth, or who maybe even I think Tyler Warren. Like that's why I put for Tyler Warren for the because I think if they like their tackles, which you know I think you should get it done the tackle. But if you feel like you're good and you can get the best tight end or best weapon available for Caleb there at 10, it
Hmm.
makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah, I mean, their running back room with was it DeAndre Swift and Roshan Johnson.
yeah,
Um, Johnson's an impressive young guy as well, not really like shown that potential yet, but I mean, I think he has it. And then Swift, honestly, not doing what I thought he would do, but behind a pretty bad O line, right? So we could see Swift resurging as he did. He played very well as a running back for the Eagles when he was behind a strong O line. Um,
exactly.
I don't think that they really need to address running back until they have a good O line because you might just find out that you already have good running backs once you actually allow them to, you give them gaps to run through, right?
Yeah.
So you can address running back next year if Swift and Johnson don't produce after bolstering your O line.
Or yeah, or you just can get one of the plethora later on. Like I just don't think in the top 10 pick where you can really get like a superstar on either your lines or
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Warren, the best
Mm-hmm.
position there, you know. And you can still get like, oh yeah, I won't get Gentry, but I can settle for Trevion Henderson, who's can
Mm-hmm.
be as dynamic, or whoever, insert name Judkins, insert name that you want to insert
Yeah.
there.
I mean, hell, the Chiefs made it all the way to the Super Bowl, and their starting running back was Kareem Hunt, who they picked up like halfway through the season. You know,
Exactly.
like yeah, it's not. I hate it for the running backs, right? I'm a running back lover, but the position's getting devalued for a reason. You know, it's just a high replacement. It's very easy to find running back talent, and you have to have a load of it because they get injured a lot too.
Yeah. I mean, lately we have seen with the new extension with for Saquon that kind of a jump in the at least in the market, I should say, for the running backs
Sure.
getting over 20 million. And we can see obviously when you got a special when you pay them, but you can't pay everybody.
If you have the chance to sign a top five running back, you spend the money. I think that unanimously you spend the money. But if you don't have a top five running back and they want a lot of money, even if it's not top five money, well, you let them walk. You know,
Yeah,
I think that that's unfortunately the name of the game. So, it's unfortunate for the running backs that maybe could in that next year prove that they're that kind of guy. But, contract years are tough ones, right? You get one chance at it, and if an injury lingers or if your O line injuries happen, and you're not able to produce, you have a very short window as a running back to prove that you deserve that money before you kind of get sent into the gulag of, you know, being a running back for I don't know, like the Browns or the Jets or something like that.
yeah. Okay. Well, that's just our top 10 of our first round. We will do a full first round mock throughout this off season. But thank you guys for watching From the Sidelines. Thank you, Jackson, for your time and having a great some football talk with me this evening. We hope you guys have a great rest of your night, and we'll catch you next Sunday.
Hey, before we log off, who's your national championship? Who do you have winning it all in basketball since we got the tournament
Uh,
going on?
I'm a Maryland guy, so I'm
Okay.
like box score watching, and we're up by two with 11 seconds right now, and I'm just like, come on! I love this team. I love the Crab Five. We play on both sides of the
The
ball. Derek,
Crab Five.
yeah. I'm a big Derek Queen fan. I want Derek Queen to the Queen City. He'd be a perfect four to play in this system with LaMelo and Brandon Miller, and because he's kind of like I would say a baby Jokic in a way, like where he can pass the ball, he can dish, he can go on the block, and I think he's the new modern day four, stretch 4, 5 if you want.
If you care about him at all, you don't want him to go to Charlotte. I'm a Hornets fan, man, and he's gonna
I
end up
know.
injured or in jail.
I just want to watch him play every day. Like, I can
Yeah.
like go to the games, actually go see him play. For sure, like
Yeah.
I would love him to go to like a team that's I think the Charlotte Hornets are on the rise. I think this is just year one of finally getting a clean slate, similar to what the
Hmm.
Commanders did. They got new
Yeah.
owners, MJ out of there. They got young, energetic GM and Charles Lee, who's a good coach.
I
Now
agree.
they're just setting the tone of figuring out who is going to be here, and they've
Hmm.
shown that they're not scared to make trades and make deals to be able
Yeah.
to get the right people in the building. So it's going to take 3 years for you really to see a big progress. But like,
Right.
I think there's going to be another big trade. Like, I was hoping Trey Mann this year was going to make the deal, but like the disc, his bulging disc in his back, he's been out almost all year,
Yeah.
and so it's been unfortunate for him. So
All
yeah.
right.
All right. Who's your pick? Who's your pick?
I got Michigan State. I got Sparty winning it.
Oh,
I think there's something to be said about not just their player experience, but their coach experience, right?
yeah.
Izzo is like one of the last remaining historic coaches, as we've seen Roy Williams, Coach K, Boeheim, all these guys retire. Of course, I just gave ACC guys, so I'm spoiling that I am an ACC guy. But I think Izzo is one of the remaining kind of old heads that has that tournament experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And so I think that honestly they have a decent schedule, right? I haven't been following, but I think Ole Miss and Iowa State are playing right now. And I
Yeah.
think who what's that?
Michigan State plays tonight.
Yeah, so if they win, they play the winner of that. Who do they play tonight?
Hold on. Oh,
They play a 10 seed, right?
yeah, they play New Mexico. They're actually down by 5 right now. So
Awesome. So that's going great. If any of you guys listening are sports gamblers, just listen to any of my takes and fade them, and you will make so much money.
yeah, Maryland's down by 1 point with 3 seconds left. I am dying inside right
I
now.
picked Colorado State to win that game, so
uh,
I mean I'm not too invested. They're not going too far after that, but that was my pick to put Colorado State in the Sweet 16.
oof, I hope you're wrong.
All right, let's wrap this thing up.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for watching from the sidelines. We will catch you guys next Sunday, and have a great rest of your night.